Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for Modern Survivalists, and finally some good news here for a change. I often talk about the advances of the left in our culture, in our society, but the brave Hungarian people have decided enough is enough, and through their elected officials decided to put a stop to the agenda of sexual perversion that the left was trying to spread in their education system, and actually managed to do pretty successfully in most other developed countries. Yet Hungarian people have decided, no, we're going to be stopping this, and their officials enacted a law protecting children. It's called the Child Protection Act Amendment, Family Protection Act, Business Advertising Act, Media Act, and the Public Education Act. So they're basically passing a series of laws and regulations as to protect children from homosexual agenda and sex reassignment agenda. But let's see what the left has to say about this and why they seem to be so upset. This is from the BBC.
The Hungarian parliament has just passed a law in the past few minutes that bans what is described as the promotion and portrayal of homosexuality and gender reassignment among those under 18. The right-wing government of Prime Minister Viktor Orban says the law, similar to one in force in Russia, protects children from gay propaganda. Rights groups, they say it.
So why is it that you have a problem with protecting children from pedophiles and from the perverted practices? I mean, why is it that there's at all a propaganda of homosexuality? Why is there a sexual lobby in your education system at all to begin with, of any kind? Why is it that you have a sexual agenda being driven for children, for minors? This is a kind of thing that should be pretty much illegal in any civilized country, because it's specifically targeting children for something sexual. Why would you have that? I mean, this has nothing to do with, of course, sexual education at an age in which kids are, developed enough to understand basic human reproduction. That is perfectly understandable. But why is it that you have homosexual agenda in your schools, or any other kind of sexual agenda in your schools, or let alone sex reassignment, which actually should be better described as sexual mutilation agenda in your schools? I actually have to do a series of videos. I think I'm going to be calling them Lies from the Left. The idea that you're assigned a sex at birth, that a doctor just looks at you and goes into God mode and decides you shall be a girl or you shall be a boy. Actually, you're just picking one as if without any reason, as if there's not actually something sexual to decide. Yes, this little boy has a penis, he's a boy, this one's a girl, and that's what we've known for thousands of years, but we were being gaslighted into thinking, no, that's no longer the case. That's just the doctor playing God. And you can be reassigned your gender if you're not happy enough with it. This is another lie. You cannot reassign your gender. You're born either a boy or a girl, unless something unfortunately went very wrong for you and you have some serious condition, some genetic problem or some deformity that is unfortunately occurring in a very specific case. Other than that, very clearly boy or girl. We've known that for a long time already. But let's at least listen some more to what the left says here.
A controversial new law has now come into effect in Hungary, despite condemnation from the EU.
Controversial. It's really not all that controversial if the majority of the country is in favor of it. And condemnation from the EU, let's actually check that out and see exactly who is condemning this. We have the map right here. The ones that were condemning this, or refuse to condemn it, actually, you have the ones on the right, as is usually the case. On the right side of history, the countries on the right of the EU not condemning, very much in favor, and probably passing similar laws themselves. And there was, I think Portugal here stayed away from this. Don't know exactly what went on there, but if that's the case, good for them. But even from France, Macron, the president of France, said something along the lines of, well, we have to respect diversity of opinion and different cultures and such, which is actually quite correct, and I'm glad he said that. I think it was only the Dutch prime minister that said they should be kicked out of the European Union because they don't have our same values. That is as far as I believe anyone went here, and those values, I mean, you should actually respect people that have different ones, instead of actually asking them to be kicked out. But either way, this is greatly exaggerated by the woke media.
The law bans portrayals of homosexuality or gender change in school educational materials or TV shows.
Okay, why on earth would you want to promote sex change, which again is not a thing? It is a thing to have sexual mutilation going on, and something that is very perverse at any age, in my opinion, but especially for children. This is just pure evil, and you should not allow. And the same thing for grooming children into certain sexual behaviors. This is not the thing that has anything to do with your education system. At the end of the day, this is all responsibility of the parents. I mean, look at this book. This is clearly a very young children's book. Look at those drawings. This is for a very young child. And you're trying to promote a homosexual agenda among very young children that don't even understand it. This is just looking for an excuse to have a sexual discussion with children. And we should always be afraid of people, of adults that want to have sexual discussions with children based on their own sexual bias that they have as adults. Their own sexual bias as adults, and that being something they want to have with children as well. Yes, that's the kind of thing this law is specifically trying to stop. But because we call people adults that want to have sexual things going on with children, they have a name. We call those pedophiles, and that's actually the way this law is described. And it starts with this kind of nonsense. A child that doesn't really care, a prepubescent child, has no awareness of his own sexuality in any aspect. They just play with boys and girls, usually mostly with boys. Boys usually play more with boys, and that's the natural thing. But trying to make any of this sexual just says a lot of how distorted, twisted, and the perversion going on in some people's head, trying to have sexual things going on with children that have really no interest in this whatsoever. And if a child has questions, it's up to the parent to go and say yes. And leaving the option to the parent of having these conversations, not about just basic biology, which of course in school at a given age, when kids are old enough to understand, you explain how people reproduce, sexual behavior and such. That's all perfectly normal and natural. You explain how a man and a woman have sex, reproduction. This is all the kind of things we were taught in school, and we understood it, and that was basically it. And when we saw other things as well, that was not the role of the school. That was the role of your parent to explain what this is, what's going on in these scenes that they're trying to push towards children. And let alone the idea of mutilating yourself, especially at that age. Keep in mind, you don't even allow a kid of this age to decide what he's going to be having for dinner. If my son tells me, yeah, I'm going to be having ice cream, no, you're going to be having healthy food. I'm your father. I decide that for you because you're just a minor. You're just a kid and you just don't know any better. Imagine leaving this in the hands of a complete stranger with a very specific sexual agenda going on in himself, in his head, and that being enough of a thing that he wants to have this discussion with little children, and that discussion being, you know what, little Johnny, little Kimberly, you're not happy because an evil doctor assigned you a sex when you were born, and that is not really representing you. Keep in mind how vulnerable children are at these ages, at these prepubescent ages, and these people telling them that having them modified or taking drugs will make them feel better at an age in which they're looking for social acceptance from other peers, at an age in which maybe they're going through a tough time because their parents are getting divorced, or God knows what else is going on in their lives. And some stranger in school is telling them, this is the solution, start taking these hormone drugs so as to make you a boy or a girl now. And the child goes, well, now I'm going to be getting the attention that I want. I'm going to be getting the attention that I seek. I'm finally going to be happy and finally going to be recognized. At a child that cannot even decide what he's going to be having for dinner. Folks, it's going to be all for now. See you in the next video. Have an awesome day. Take care.